So today I want to talk about something that reveals the entire structure of this war. Not the airstrikes, not the casualties, not the ceasefire negotiations. The most important variable in this conflict is a narrow waterway most people cannot even locate on a map, the Strait of Hormuz. And once you understand what is happening there, you will see why America is trapped, why Trump's threats are hollow, why Iran does not need to win militarily, and why every day this conflict continues, America's position gets weaker while Iran's gets stronger. Part 1. What is actually happening in the Strait of Hormuz right now? The Strait of Hormuz is approximately 21 miles wide at its narrowest point, sitting between Iran and the Arabian Peninsula. Through this tiny choke point flows 1/3 of all seaborne oil traded globally. That is 21 million barrels per day. Oil from Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, Qatar, all of it must pass through this strait to reach global markets. There is no alternative route. If you want Gulf energy, you go through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, since this war started on February 28th, Iran has effectively closed that strait. Not completely, not officially, but effectively. Iran fires missiles and drones at vessels attempting to pass. It lays sea mines in shipping lanes. It charges fees for safe passage to non-hostile ships while excluding American, Israeli, and allied vessels. The result is that most commercial shipping companies have decided the risk is too high. Insurance rates have skyrocketed. Shipping traffic through the Strait of Hormuz has collapsed by approximately 85%. And here is what that means. Global oil supply has been cut by roughly 18 million barrels per day. 18 million barrels the world economy needs daily. They are simply gone. Oil was trading around $80 per barrel before this war. Now it fluctuates between $160 and $180. Analysts project it could hit $200 within weeks if the strait remains closed. Gas prices in America are approaching $6 per gallon. Inflation is accelerating. The global economy is heading toward recession. Now here is where things get interesting. Trump has threatened repeatedly to strike Iran's power plants if Iran does not reopen the strait. He set a deadline, then extended it by 5 days, then extended it again by 10 days. Each time he says, talks are going well, progress is being made. But Iran keeps saying there are no talks. Iran keeps rejecting proposals, and the strait remains closed. So why does Trump keep extending his own deadlines? Why threaten action but never take it? The answer is deeply uncomfortable. Trump cannot actually reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Not with airstrikes, not with threats, not with any military option currently available. And Iran knows it. Part 2. Why America cannot reopen the strait. Let me explain why the Strait of Hormuz represents a structural trap America cannot escape. The problem is not firepower. America has overwhelming firepower. The problem is geography and asymmetric warfare. These combine to make all of America's military advantages irrelevant. The strait is 21 miles wide. On one side, Oman and the UAE. On the other, Iran. And Iran's coastline is not flat beach. It is rocky, mountainous terrain with thousands of hiding places for mobile missile launchers, drone operators, and small boat teams. Iran has spent 20 years turning its southern coast into a fortress designed to control this choke point. Underground bunkers, mobile anti-ship missile batteries, swarms of fast attack boats, sea mines, thousands of drones, many cheap, expendable, and difficult to intercept. America's primary advantage is air superiority, precision strikes from aircraft and cruise missiles, the ability to destroy defenses from the air before ground forces engage. That worked in Iraq in 2003. That worked in Libya in 2011. Establish air dominance, destroy air defenses, strike with precision, and the war ends within days. But the Strait of Hormuz does not allow that playbook to work. The targets are mobile. Iran does not park missile launchers in the open. It hides them in caves, tunnels, civilian areas, and moves them constantly. You strike a launch site, and 10 minutes later, another launcher is operational 5 miles away. This is not conventional warfare where you destroy an enemy's air force on the ground. This is asymmetric warfare where the enemy refuses to present targets your firepower can destroy. And then you have the sea mine problem. Iran has one of the largest stockpiles of naval mines in the world. Mines are extraordinarily difficult to counter. They sit on the ocean floor or float beneath the surface. Hard to detect, time-consuming to clear, and even the threat of mines stops commercial shipping. You do not need to sink ships. You just need to make shipowners believe their vessel might hit a mine. So even if America destroys half of Iran's missile launchers and drone bases, Iran still retains enough capability to make the strait too dangerous for commercial shipping. And rebuilding that capability takes Iran days or weeks, because the systems are cheap, mobile, and easy to replace. But here is the part that makes this trap truly inescapable. America cannot just keep striking Iranian positions indefinitely. Every strike kills civilians. Every strike destroys infrastructure. And every strike strengthens Iran's narrative that this is a war of survival against American aggression. Iran's government, facing massive internal unrest just months ago, is now rallying the Iranian people. Every American bomb makes it harder for Iran to back down, even if it wanted to. Trump knows this. His military advisors know this. That is why he keeps extending deadlines. That is why he claims talks are progressing even when Iran denies it. Because admitting publicly that America cannot reopen the strait is politically catastrophic. Part 3. The economic endurance war America is losing. If America cannot reopen the strait militarily, the war becomes an economic endurance contest. Who can survive economically while the strait remains closed? The answer is clear. Iran can survive this much longer than America can. Iran has been preparing for this for decades. Since 1979, Iran has lived under Western sanctions. Its economy has been isolated and pressured for over 40 years. Iran has built resilience, a domestic economy that functions even when cut off from global trade. Smuggling networks, black market channels, alternative financial systems designed to bypass Western pressure. Iran's economy is poor, its people have suffered, but that suffering has created economic scar tissue. Iran knows how to survive isolation. Its government knows how to maintain control when the economy collapses. And critically, Iran is still selling oil, not through the Strait of Hormuz, but through overland pipelines, small vessels, arrangements with countries willing to defy American sanctions. Iran's oil revenue has dropped significantly, but it has not gone to zero. And because Iran's economy is already degraded, because its people already have low expectations, the economic pain is something Iran's government believes it can survive. Now, compare that to America. America is not prepared for prolonged conflict that cuts global oil supply by 18 million barrels daily. The American economy runs on cheap energy. When oil was $80, the system functioned. At $180, the system breaks. At $200, you are looking at global recession. American consumers are already feeling this. Gas prices approaching $6 per gallon. Inflation rising again. The cost of everything, food, transportation, manufacturing, going up because energy costs underpin the entire economy. And Trump's approval rating is collapsing. It is down to 36%, the lowest since he took office. And it is falling specifically because of this war, because of gas prices, because people are feeling economic pain in their daily lives. Trump promised no new wars. He promised to bring down prices. He promised America first. Now he is prosecuting a war that makes everything more expensive, drags on with no end, and 59% of Americans believe has gone too far. And here is the critical point. Trump faces re-election in 2028. His party faces midterms in 2026. American politicians operate on short time horizons. They need results now. Gas prices down now. Economy stable now. Iran's government does not face those pressures. No elections, no approval ratings. Iran's timeline is measured in years, even decades. In an endurance contest between a democracy with impatient voters and an authoritarian regime with no electoral accountability, the authoritarian regime almost always wins. So every day the Strait of Hormuz remains closed, Trump's political position gets weaker. Every day gas prices stay high, his approval drops further. Every day the war continues, more Republicans in Congress start distancing themselves from him. And Trump knows this. That is why he keeps extending deadlines. That is why he keeps claiming progress in negotiations that are not happening. Because he is hoping, desperately, that something changes, that Iran blinks, that oil prices drop before the domestic political cost becomes unbearable. But Iran is not blinking. And that brings us to the most important part of this entire analysis. Part 4, why Iran does not need to win, it just needs to survive. Here is the strategic reality most analysts are missing. Iran does not need to defeat America militarily. It does not need to win battles or shoot down American aircraft. All Iran needs to do is keep the Strait of Hormuz closed long enough for the economic and political pressure inside America to force Trump to accept terms he currently considers unacceptable. Iran wants guarantees America will never attack again, reparations for war damage, recognition of sovereignty over the strait, America out of the Middle East permanently. These are political objectives. You do not achieve political objectives by winning battles. You achieve them by making the cost of continuing unbearable for your opponent. And right now, Iran is doing exactly that. It is not trying to destroy the American military. It is trying to destroy Trump's political viability. It is trying to turn the American public against this war. It is trying to make every single day this conflict continues more costly for Trump domestically than the humiliation of accepting a ceasefire on terms favorable to Iran. And it is working. Trump's approval is collapsing. Public opposition growing. Gas prices becoming a political crisis. Republicans who initially supported the strikes are now hedging, distancing themselves, talking about negotiated settlement. Trump is politically bleeding out, and Iran knows it. So Iran's strategy is simple. Keep the strait closed, endure the airstrikes, accept the casualties, maintain economic pressure on Trump, and wait. Wait for the political pressure inside America to become so intense that Trump has no choice but to negotiate. And when that moment comes, when Trump is desperate for an off-ramp, Iran will present its terms: reparations, guarantees, sovereignty over the strait, American withdrawal from the region. And Trump, facing economic crisis and political collapse, will have to consider terms that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago. This is not a war of firepower. This is a war of endurance. And in wars of endurance, the side that can tolerate more pain, the side that can survive longer while the world burns, almost always wins. Iran has been surviving under pressure for 40 years. America has not fought a war like this, where the enemy refuses to present military targets, where economic pain is the battlefield, since Vietnam. And we know how Vietnam ended. Part 5. The ground invasion trap, and why it makes everything worse. Now, some people will say, well, if airstrikes cannot reopen the strait, what about a ground invasion? And this is where we need to talk about the most dangerous possibility. There are reports, unconfirmed but persistent, that the Pentagon is deploying additional Marines to the region. Thousands of troops. And the fear is that Trump, under immense political pressure, facing collapsing approval ratings, desperate to show strength, might order a ground operation to take Iran's Karg Island, or sections of Iran's southern coast. And if that happens, America walks directly into the same trap it has walked into 3 times before: Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. The trap is called mission creep. You start with a limited objective. Just take the island. Just secure the coastline. Sounds achievable. Quick, minimal forces. So you send 3,000 Marines. Then you discover holding the island requires controlling the nearby coast because Iran keeps hitting your positions with artillery and drones. So you expand. You take coastline, now 10,000 troops. Then you discover the coastline is overlooked by the Zagros Mountains. Iran hits you from elevated positions, so you take the mountains. Now 30,000 troops. And now you are fighting a ground war inside Iran. Every week the mission expands. Every week you need more troops. Every week casualties mount. And every week it becomes harder to leave, because leaving means admitting all those lives, all that money, all that political capital was wasted. This is exactly what happened in Vietnam. In 1965, America sent 3,500 Marines to Da Nang, a limited mission. 4 years later, 500,000 American troops in Vietnam. The same pattern repeated in Iraq, in Afghanistan. Limited mission, clear objectives. Then the mission expands, objectives shift, timeline extends, and you are trapped. And here is why a ground invasion of Iran would be even worse than those previous wars. Iran is a nation of 90 million people, large, well-trained military, mountainous terrain that makes offensive operations extraordinarily difficult. A population that, whatever their feelings about their government, will unite against a foreign invader. When Iraq invaded Iran in 1980, even Iranians who hated the Islamic Republic fought to defend their country. National pride is stronger than political grievances. So if America invades, it will not be greeted as liberators. It will face 90 million people resisting occupation. Insurgency, guerrilla warfare, drone attacks, roadside bombs. The same tactics that bled America in Iraq and Afghanistan, but on a larger scale in more difficult terrain. And all of this while the Strait of Hormuz remains closed. Because ground troops cannot reopen a shipping lane, you cannot secure commercial maritime traffic with soldiers. The only way to reopen the strait is to convince Iran to stop attacking ships. And invading Iran makes that infinitely harder, because now Iran's government can claim it is fighting a war of survival against foreign occupation. Trump knows this. His generals know this. That is why, despite the troop deployments, despite the pressure, no ground invasion has been ordered yet. Because everyone who understands military strategy knows it would be catastrophic. But political desperation makes people do catastrophic things. And Trump is desperate. Part 6. What this all means and where it is heading. Let me bring all of this together. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. Global oil supply down 18 million barrels per day. Oil approaching $200 per barrel. Global economy heading toward recession. Trump's approval at 36% and falling. 59% of Americans think the war has gone too far. Trump keeps threatening Iran's power plants, but keeps extending deadlines because he knows airstrikes cannot reopen the strait. Iran knows this. Iran's strategy is to endure economically until the political cost to Trump becomes unbearable. Iran can endure longer because it has survived under pressure for 40 years and faces no elections. Trump cannot endure much longer because gas prices and inflation are destroying his political viability. And if Trump orders a ground invasion in desperation, America walks into the mission creep trap that destroyed American credibility in Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan. This is the trap. America cannot go forward because ground invasion would be catastrophic. America cannot go back because withdrawing without reopening the strait means admitting defeat. And America cannot stay here indefinitely because every day the strait remains closed, Trump's domestic position collapses further. Iran does not need to beat the American military. It just needs to outlast Trump's approval rating. And right now, it is winning that war. So what happens next? One of three things. First, Trump accepts a ceasefire on politically humiliating terms: reparations, recognition of Iranian sovereignty over the strait, guarantees against future attacks, American withdrawal from the region. A massive geopolitical defeat, but possibly the least bad option. Second, Trump orders a ground invasion to force the strait open and show strength. This leads to mission creep, an unwinnable occupation, and a generational disaster. Third, the war grinds on. The strait stays mostly closed. Oil prices stay high. Global economy slides into recession. Trump's approval keeps falling. Eventually, either Trump is forced out politically or his successor inherits this mess. None of these outcomes are good for America. That is the trap. The Strait of Hormuz is not just a narrow body of water. It is the structural flaw in America's entire position in this war. Iran found it. Iran is exploiting it. And Trump has no answer. When you see headlines about ceasefire talks, when you hear Trump claim progress, when you read about deadline extensions, understand what is really happening. Trump is stalling, hoping something changes, hoping Iran blinks, hoping oil prices drop. But none of that is happening. The strait remains closed. The economic pain continues. And Iran is patient. This is not a war America is winning. This is a war America is trapped in. And the Strait of Hormuz is the lock on the cage. Subscribe for more analysis of this war explained clearly and simply. And tell me in the comments, do you think Trump will accept humiliating ceasefire terms to end this? Or will he order a ground invasion and walk into the mission creep trap? I will see you next time.